Welcome to the Moms I Know with Sheila Walsh-Dunton and Maria Anderson-Farner. Two moms on a mission to reclaim childhood and take you from surviving to thriving on your parenting journey.
Why did parenting change from preparing our kids for life to protecting them from life, which means they're not prepared to live life on their own?
And why do these problems I'm writing about seem rooted in the middle and upper classes? Hi, this is Sheila.
And this is Maria.
And we want to welcome you to The Moms I Know.
And that's a quote by
Julie Lythcott-Haims, author of How to Raise an Adult to Break Free of the Overparenting Trap and Prepare Your Kids for Success.
Fascinating topic. So today, we're going to be continuing on with Kelly Dearie. We had so much fun talking with her about gut health and libido, and we were talking about the teen years. And so we decided that this would be a really nice follow-up episode to really talk about when we've done all of these things with our children when they're younger, and we have done the beautiful nutritious food, and we've helped them to learn mindfulness techniques, and we've made sure that they're exercising and that they're out in nature. And then we hit the teen years and things change. And so we decided that this would be a great topic. And so we're going to be having this conversation with the three of us, who all of us have been dealing with the teen years. And so for those of you parents who are in the midst of this now or are heading towards it, we want to assure you that the teen years can be delightful, they can be challenging, and they can also be an incredible arena for really helping to raise responsible, caring, thoughtful adults.
I love that, Maria. And I was a high school teacher, and I had worked with teens, and I love teens. I never thought I would love my own teens in the way that I do. And I attribute that to you, actually, with being a little bit more open-minded, because when I first started at Mountain School, your teens were late teens, but you just said how wonderful it was and how amazing that they were. And I try to be that mom now and telling how amazing my teens are, because although it is challenging, it is pretty amazing. And if we are able to look at it through curiosity, we are able to see the amazing. So you kind of gave me that hope, that glimmer of hope that doesn't have to be as bad as we're seeing kind of around, that the rebellion, the drugs, the alcohol, the scary, scary stuff, but that it's normal and it is part of growing up. So how to best support that?
Well, and you've talked about that too, Sheila, that when we lay the foundation with our children in the early years and we have these good channels of communication and we've really listened to our kids and we've honored them and we've respected them and we haven't helicopter parented them too much, we haven't done everything for them, then, we've set the stage for them being competent teenagers, and that is a phase. And Kelly, you were talking about the teen years, and I loved a phrase that you were using. Instead of talking about, the rebellious years or whatever, that the teenagers need to go through this specific phase. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a biological imperative that young adolescents, their hormones start to change, right? And their abilities start to change. So if you think about ancient cultures, the teenagers weren't sitting around the house while the mom was nagging them to get up out of bed. That's not what they were doing. They were out learning things, building skills. They were away from the parents as much as humanly possible. Maybe even building their own shelters, hunting, learning all these other skills, right? So, I know it's also, I definitely see a difference. I'm not trying to be sexist, but I really see a difference. Like right now, I can tell my son is over me. He is so bored to death with me. I'm just a taxi cab driver. And, I have to really turn it up if I'm going to entertain him. And then he doesn't like that either. So, and honestly, like when he lights up, it's like, those studies where the animals start to do flips and run around the house all crazy when their owners are like in a certain mile radius from the house. Have you heard about that? Teenager boys do that when their dads are on their way. So there's something to this. They like boys, and I'm just speaking to boys because I haven't raised a girl yet, or I haven't. But they really need positive male role models and mentorship. And I'm going to be totally honest and vulnerable right now. And I'm just going to say the biggest struggle that pains me is, where are they getting that mentorship? Where, when my husband has to work quite a bit, and there's no way around that right now for us. And so my son's getting his mentorship from video games and or whatever, or some kind of TV show screen time. And yeah, when they're young, you have them in the Waldorf school or whatever, it's easy to just, you don't have a TV in your house, you don't have all those things. But it's a whole different story when everyone in their culture is doing it and they're an outcast. That's not okay either. So wow, finding that healthy balance between, letting them overindulge and then allowing them to learn from the consequences of the overindulgence without trying to control it, and to actually provide them some possibilities so they can see that, hey, you could try this and do it differently. That has been really hard. I'm working on that. I feel like that's the main thing that keeps our relationship okay. But honestly, like, if you can get those teenage boys away from you and in the hands of some positive male role models, whatever type of mentorship. My son goes to Ninja, and I cannot tell you how powerful it is, like the difference it makes in his personality, his mood, his well-being, just from learning the skill of Ninja with this amazing role model that he has. And he's an amazing musician. He also plays a lot of Celtic and Irish fiddle tunes and things like that, and he has a teacher. And she's a great influence on him because it's not me, even though it's a woman. And so, so I just had to put that out. The more you can get them away to these role models, the less video game and because the mentorship they're getting from screen time is horrible. I mean, I've watched the shows with them. I've bonded with him and watched stuff that he's watched, and some of it can be funny, but it's not. It is the worst thing if they're doing that too much and they're not seeing these other ways of being that are healthy and that are going to help them mature into, like you said, responsible, caring adults.
Well, and that's the thing we're talking about. So like in the teen years, traditionally, children would go off with mentors. And so they were doing apprenticeships. And now we have a culture where the teen years are sort of this in-between, whether they're really striving towards college or they're trying to find their place, and they're really struggling. And I think that our society is not doing a fabulous job right now of helping to support them in that. And so, and whether it's, a young man or a young woman, I think that you really spoke about this male role model, because I know for both of my children, their relationship with their father was profound in the teen years. And I've said this to families over and over, that especially for young women, as they become young women, their relationship with their father needs to deepen as well, because if they don't have a strong connection with their father, then they go out looking for that father figure in maybe unhealthy ways. And for the young men, they need somebody to learn from and emulate. And of course, they're pushing away from us as the women, because, I mean, both the young men and the young women, I think, are pushing away from us because we've hopefully done our job. We've hopefully nurtured them. And now they're seeking that you said individuation. They're learning to be their own individuals, and they have to push away. And I joke about, the teen years are all about them being ready to go off into the world and us being ready to let them go. So part of that struggle, I think, is about that. And so, it's like by the time they're 17, 18, we're like, okay, fine, off you go. And we're happy to let them go, but we've also supported them through that. And so that male role model, the other adults that are worthy of their time and attention. And so I really appreciate that you've said that.
Okay, this is really, really important. And when you said, when it's time to let them go. So that can be really tricky. And the immediate thing that came to my mind when you said that is, let them go to what?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now that's where we still have the influence. That's where we still have the power as parents. What are you letting them go to? So yeah, you need to get them away, but where are they going? What are they doing? And here's one thing that many people might not know that I've learned recently is some of the things they're doing are really scary, that we didn't face these challenges when we were individuating from our parents.
And so, again, it comes down to education. It's interesting. All three of us have this education background. We're teachers. And so we're trying to give our children the tools. We're trying to educate them, whether it's about drugs or about sex or about, strangers or all the kinds of things that are out there. It's having those open lines of communication with our children and helping them to understand the consequences of their decisions. And at a certain point, we have to trust that we have laid that foundation for them, that we have helped them to understand how they need to take care of their bodies. But then off they go into the world. Yeah. And we know that there are these things out there. And, whether it's, a bag of potato chips or whether it's drugs and alcohol or whether it's, sex or whether it's talking to people online that might not have the best intentions. So, there's so many different things now that we didn't have to deal with as children. But I think the teen years have always been that stage where off they go into the world. And sure, there's all kinds of dangers. So how do we help give them those tools? How do we help them be independent? And if we've done too much for them and we've taken care of all these things and we've made all the decisions for them, then they don't have those tools within themselves to know, oh, this is this situation. I need to use my common sense around this. And so, I'm really looking forward to reading more about this book about how to be, how to become a healthy adult and how to raise adults. And so I'd love to hear some more insights there as well.
So if parents who talk to their kids regularly about drugs, their kids are 70% less likely to get involved just by talking.
Thank you. Nice positive statistic there. Yes.
Yeah, because when you're saying that, I'm like, how do we not be helicopter parents?
Yeah.
Right? When we hear these horrible statistics, when we see the porn online and we hear the stories and everything. And so there's a few things. I read The Teenage Brain by Frances Jensen, and I love it that, she's a neuroscientist, but she was also the mom of 2 teen boys. And it's biological, prefrontal cortex, not fully developed until age 25 and everything. But yet it's okay to tell your children stories of real life. I was always afraid of that in the sense of I don't want to instill fear. However, she said if they have that frame of reference, they know that there are some boundaries. So it's not being, not trying to scare your kids, but saying, yeah, when you, about these pods, for example, that it can cause seizure damage, that it can cause irreversible damage. Like, that's okay to say that, to keep those lines of communication open. Another thing that comes from attachment parenting that is just something that, I just used it the other night when there was some discord in our house and everything. Teenagers, No.
Yeah.
Connection before correction. Every single time.
Love that.
Connection before correction. And it's really, even in these teenage years, we have a 17-year-old and, we came at him with, you're not doing this, you're not getting your schoolwork done, you're not doing this, and just on him. And he's like, he blew up. And we're just like, wait a second. We're trying not to blow up, but we want to blow up. How dare you blow up without us blowing up? And then it was, take a break, come back and connect. How was your day? What's going on? What's going on in your life? Because obviously, and same thing with me. Obviously, I was not, and Brent, and we were not where we should be as well. So we connect, you feel good, and then you talk about what happened, what transpired.
I love that. Connection before correction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we all know as parents, when we look back, that's the one thing when we like, ooh, what could I change that things would have been smoother? It's always that.
And it works, getting back to libido and gut health, right? It works in that way too. It works with your relationship.
Oh my gosh, and you're so right.
No, seriously, like my husband came in last night, he got off like at 9:00 and he started in and I was just like, hey, let's connect first, because he was just like going all day. And that's what happens. Connection before correction.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the teen years aren't always easy and every teenager is different as well. And so we have to find these pathways to connect with them. We have to come from their interests. We have to come from this place of deep listening. I also notice with the teenagers, they want you to listen when they want you to listen. And that's a tricky one too, because if we're really busy and they come and they want to talk and we're not available, then we might have missed that little moment. And then off they go for another couple of weeks before they might be ready to talk again. I also noticed that long car rides can be wonderful places for communication. You're both facing forward. You can kind of, it's not, you're not looking at each other, so it's not so intense. And just kind of letting things unfold, really unplugging. The unplugging is really hard, especially nowadays, even when my kids were younger, but we had boundaries around that. And those were just family boundaries around the communication pieces and not being plugged in, whether it's the dinner table. I know nowadays there's people really doing creative things with the cell phone boundaries. So the dinner table, and then at a certain time in the evening where the cell phones are not on the teenagers anymore. They have to kind of check them in for the evening. And so every family is going to have different boundaries around all of these things, but there's so many more things that I think nowadays people are dealing with. So trying to keep the relationships positive, trying to keep them supportive, but also respecting the teenagers' autonomy, their individuality, their interests, even when we might not be thrilled with some of their interests. And that's a tricky one too. But Sheila, one of the things I love about your family is how much time you spend out in nature. And I think that has been one of the biggest keys for your family, and also for our family. And Kelly, I don't know about your family, but when we would go on trips together, when we would be out in nature together, we're creating this time. And then also, you talked about this idea of where the children are going to. Now, obviously, if they're in school, we're hoping that they're getting a wonderful education, that they've got adults around them that are supportive. If they're homeschooling, that they're in appropriate activities, that their after school extracurricular types of things and their sports and their hobbies are appropriate for them, that they're moving their bodies, that they're getting all of that. But then when we can have that family time together, that it's time together, that it's unplugged, and that, nature is such a great thing for children to come up against, especially those teenagers. And so I think, we've all kind of sent our kids off to, whether it's adventure camps or survival types of things, or, really helping, because, for thousands of years, teenagers would be coming up against their environment, whether it was hunting or whether it was gathering or creating and, being part of the community and the things that they were doing. And so nowadays we have to kind of facilitate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my friend's daughter goes to a local school, private school, where they just had, as part of their rite of passage, 8th graders would go spend a night alone.
Yeah,
field trip. I don't know.
My son did that. Yeah, at Headwaters, Waldorf, they do it. The 8th graders spend the night alone. They build their own shelter. Charlie and I cross-country skied Mount Shasta that week while Gabe was in Headwaters. We were field trip drivers. It was
Headwaters is an amazing program. And for those of you who don't know that's Northern California, the Shasta area. My kids, when they were very little, would go off every Thursday with Tim Corcoran, who started Headwaters. And off they'd go and just be out in the wilderness for the day, the Santa Cruz wilderness, and come back at the end of the day tired, hungry, and dirty, but so happy. And so that Headwaters program is amazing. So, and I'm sure, there's programs like that all across the country that we can send our children to, and it's huge. And those are pivotal for teens.
I'm sending, one of the things that I think has the most positive impact on my son is he loves this music camp, and it's a community music school camp for teens. And they do it every year. It's a whole week. They stay, so they're away from the parents all week, and all they do is play music together all day long. And then on Saturday, there's a huge concert, and it is so incredible. So if you have children who love music and are into music, I highly recommend that camp. And then the other thing I'm signing up for, and he's actually looking forward to it. I thought he was going to be disappointed. It's one of the things that you just sign them up and without their consent kind of thing, when they really need it, and you're just like, okay, you're going to this. So I did one of those. He needed it. He needed this type of intervention. It's called Habits for Life. And I told him, like, okay, so it's in Utah. So you can't cuss when you're in Utah. right? It's okay here in Santa Cruz, but it's not okay in Utah. So there's funny things, and you can't wear flip-flops and you can't dress like that. You've got to, you've got to experience a different culture. But the Habits for Life program, it looks pretty amazing. I definitely encourage you to go on their website, and they've got the cutest little video with all the teens. My mom signed me up and I didn't want to come, and then they interview them when they first get there at the camp, and then they interview them when they're leaving. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, also you brought up something, teenagers usually are fairly social. Yeah. And, every child is different. But if you're noticing that your child is really isolating themselves and they have typically been a very social person, that's a little, that's a red flag. And so we're finding these activities for children in those ages to be social, to be together, to be doing activities that are around their interests. And so all of the ones that you've mentioned, Kelly, are fabulous.
And I want to add that when you see your children struggling, so when my daughter came back from her exchange program, she struggled at school, and where she wanted to be social, but she could not find anybody to be social with. And so, she was eating lunch on her own, and there was, here I'm a mom at home going, how can I support her? She's going to find her way. She's resilient. She can do this. And what I did, similar to you in the car ride, but what I would do and what I've told other moms is that I got in her bed with her. Like I would just lay in bed with her and look up at the ceiling, and she would just talk and talk. Aww. And we would cry sometimes. Aww. But it was that closeness that allowed her to be her, to know that she matters, that she counts. So if you see your child that's having struggles at school, you need to be close. You need to drop what you are doing, and you need to pay attention. And again, connect. People are, connect, because that has been huge for her and I. It's helped our relationship in these teenage years. She trusts me. She's able to feel safe. And again, it's those opportunities where late at night, there's been some, random things where I've been able to be up at 12:30 at night and my son is coming home. And that's when I find out about these opportunities. That's when I find out about these jewels and about the stuff what these kids are doing. And so it's an opportunity, though I use those opportunities to say, well, do you know the source? Are you always with somebody? You do not drink and drive. You do not. And I feel like these are the tools that that you have to say. They're not going to learn these necessarily on their own. You're still parenting teens. Yeah. And I think as a high school teacher, I saw that. You see less parent involvement. You see, you don't communicate as much, and so here I am with my teens, and you feel that you're like, you've worked so hard for these 15 years, you're tired, you want to let your kids individuate, but yet you still have to be present. You still have to pay attention so that you can tell them these things.
I love your example of just laying there and saying nothing. Like now that I think about it, if there's ever been a breakthrough and a connection in our relationship, it's when I just sit and say nothing.
And we don't have to solve every problem for them. We don't have to fix things. We just have to be there and listen. I remember one time my daughter actually said, Mom, you don't need to try to fix this. I just need you to hear what I have to say. And she was so, she was so clear in her communication of that. And because I'm always the kind of person that's trying to make everybody happy and trying to fix everything. And we can't fix.
We can relate.
The teacher personality.
So often we can't fix these things. We can't change some of the things that have happened, but we can listen. And so when we're more quiet, but you both said that, our presence, and that we're there, we're not hovering, we're not telling them what they have to do, but we're creating healthy boundaries for them. We can be that loving, protective container, but letting them also find their path. And so, just being present and listening is, I think, one of the best things we can do with our teenagers, and not coming from a place of judgment as well, and yet sharing our insights, our opinions, and being close.
Yeah, because, there's a book, Duct Tape Parenting. I might have mentioned it before, where she says, the author states that it's really, we think parenting's just between 0 and 18, but really it's between 18 and 80, because we want to be in their lives. We want to have established a relationship of trust, of mutual respect, so that we have a meaningful relationship, you know?
Well, and also so that as they go off into the world, that they want to come home.
Exactly.
There was a poem, wherever you wander, wherever you roam, be happy and healthy and glad to come home.
Right.
I used to share that with my kids.
I love that.
You know, this idea that of course they're going to go off into the world. And we were talking earlier about this idea that during the teen years, they may be making decisions about, food choices that we don't agree with, or friend choices, or, hopefully not some of the more serious ones. But in general, if we have kept open communication and we've modeled well for them, they come back around. And I'm just so enjoying seeing that with both of my kids, and seeing, the seeds that we planted, the roots that were created. They're coming back to some of those things, and that foundationally, I think that those values are there, and that they still will listen. They'll still ask for our input. And I really value that, and that we're a huge part of our children's lives. And in fact, that, our move to Montana was to be closer to our children and our grandchildren, and that they're happy to have us be here. So, and we're working on those boundaries too.
Oh yeah. That's the one thing we didn't even address. That's for a whole boundaries. That's a whole other topic. Well, I could say a lot about that.
Yeah. So yeah, go love on your teenager. It's just like, when was the last time you hugged your teenager? They need hugs.
Yeah. Just have fun with them, and just appreciate the unique beings that they are.
Amen.
Yeah. We will talk to you next time on The Moms I Know.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us today for The Moms I Know. To learn more about Sheila and her online program, The Mom Map, visit purplebeetnutrition.com. For Maria's monthly blog and to learn more about her group programs and retreats, visit soquelessentials.com. That's SOQUEL essentials.com. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Moms I Know. Until next week, have a joyful family journey.